Black like me. Black like me. Black like me.
You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Hello, listeners. This is Dr. Alex G, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Black Like Me. I have a somber tone in my voice because I have a somber tone in my soul. I'm recording this special episode about what has taken place in Buffalo, New York in the past few days, because I felt that I couldn't let this incident go without being discussed, and I didn't want to make the mistake of recording something later that would air even later when it loses some of its relevance or there's more updated information. So I worked with my team. We changed up my schedule at the last minute and said I need to drop this. And so I just want to talk with you for a few minutes about how I'm processing what's going on, what I think is happening in America, and what this means for what we believe about democracy, justice, fairness, DEI issues, etc., etc., etc. My heart is just heavy. And it's not heavy because I want it to be heavy. It's not heavy because I want to feel mad about this. I sort of parked the emotions about what took place in Buffalo because I just wasn't in an emotional space to just deal with that. When I heard that it happened, what took place, at this Buffalo supermarket, I just thought, nope. I can't let myself get sucked into this. The media calls, the phone calls, my friends asking, what can we do? Oh no, we heard what's happened. And so this is something that is somewhat typical with African American people when tragedies like these happen in our communities. And even though I live in Madison, Wisconsin, which is miles from Buffalo, New York, my heart still goes out. I've got friends who are fellow pastors whose parishioners and leaders are related to some of the victims who were killed. It comes close to home. And then when you look at their stories, their faces, and you read their ages, and you think, this is too young to be cut down just because you're at a supermarket that day at that time. A lot of emotions, a lot of stuff that's going on. And what I appreciate about my podcast and my listeners is that this is a place where I can be real. But today I don't want you just to listen to me and commiserate with a black person whose podcast you support. I want you to think about you, yourselves, your children, your families, your future. I want you to think about what this means to you and for you. Because the luxury that many people have when they are white is that they can disconnect and say, I'm not that guy. I'm not a racist. He's probably some Trump supporter, a extremist, right-wing fanatic. But black people feel a connection as if it were down the street because we know someone who looks like, someone whose name sounds like, or we think that that can happen in a grocery store in our community. And so the reality of that is so sobering. And I just wanted to talk about it. The victims of the shooting rampage that took place Saturday were aged from 32 to 86. They were shot by suspect Peyton Gendron, who's 18 in Buffalo. In all, there were 13 people who were shot, 11 of whom were black. But again, just 10 of them died. I'm understanding that correctly. There's sometimes the information feels somewhat conflictual. Authorities said that the suspected gunman had plans to continue his rampage had he not been stopped. This is based on CBS. This is Kevin Recon, who reported this on Monday. This is just ridiculous. He was taken alive. This is something that's just still hard for black people to understand. He was taken alive after killing 10 people. There was no standoff. And I'm not saying the police should have killed him, but it's just interesting. And to my knowledge, he was not taken to Arby's for lunch like Dylan Roof, who killed a bunch of black people in church several years ago. Before I get into talking about this disturbed person, an animal who would just go on a rampage like that to kill innocent people just because they're black, for you to gas up your car and drive out of town, it's just unconscionable. But before I get into talking about him, I just want to honor the names of the 10 victims. Roberta A. Drury, 32 years old. Margus D. Morrison, 52. Andre McNeil, 53. Aaron Salter, 55, who, by the way, was a retired police officer who was working as a security guard in Top Friendly Mart grocery store. Geraldine Talley, Celestine Cheney, Hayward Patterson, Catherine Massey, Pearl Young, and Ruth Whitfield. And I'm sorry, Aaron Salter was 55, the retired police officer. Miss Geraldine Talley was 62. Miss Celestine Cheney was 65. Hayward Patterson, he was 67. Miss Catherine Massey was 72, a community activist with a beautiful soul, according to her sister. Miss Pearl Young, 77. Her nephew works at a church of a friend of mine. And Miss Ruth Whitfield, 86. Who had just come from a visit with her husband in a care home. These are 10 souls, people. These are 10 beautiful people who won't live to see and spend more time with their grandchildren, to tell the stories of their upbringing, to contribute to the overall betterment of the Buffalo community. These are people who got up and got dressed that morning. These are people who believe in transcendence. These are people who are probably trying to get something at the grocery store, the supermarket, so that they could prepare for their family that day or the next day. For a lot of the older folks who are churchgoers, they might have been preparing food on Saturday, because a lot of older black churchgoers don't believe in doing work like that on Sunday, so they'll put food on Saturday so they can come home and have a really nice dinner after their time of gathering and worship on Sunday. And they went to the grocery store and never left. The youngest victim was a store worker, Zaire Goodman, 20 years old, was released after being shot in the neck. Jennifer Warrington, 50, who's also been treated and released, and Christopher Braden, 55, in stable condition. Oh my gosh. The thing that frightens me about all of this is how numb we become. We live from one incident to the next, and they don't connect for us. And so I know that I have a mixed group of friends, and I know that this is on the mind of every black person I know, whether we're talking about it or not. It's a reality because we have this connection. But there are folks who don't necessarily know what this has to do with our context or our community, and so it may not even occur to them to talk about it or to process it or to think about it. And I don't mean process it with me. I think the last thing I can do or need to be doing today is processing my feeling and angst of this with white people about what this white man has done to black people just because they were black. I think it's time for white people to begin talking more about these issues and asking, how do people who have been in psych wards because they have threatened to blow up a school get weapons? Or how do they become radicalized? And where were the parents? And when did this begin? And why didn't anyone notice? Just a couple things that I noticed about this. I was listening to a statement that was made by President Biden, and I appreciate the statement. But he denounced this person and this kind of behavior and he named white supremacy. But one of the things that the president said that was disturbing to me, and I may be taking out of context, but I don't think I am. So let me stop making all of these disclaimers and just say it. He said we all need to work together. That's what he says. He says all of us, we need to all work together for a more equitable and a freer America, more united America. And I'm thinking all of who? President Biden. We all need to work together against hate. That's like saying women need to work with us to stop rape, because somehow they've got a part in communicating what it's like or what happens the moment before it takes place and how you feel afterwards, and maybe thinking perhaps you may have conceived. Like, we all need to work together. Let's come together. Let's have a kumbaya moment. Let's sing. I actually think hearing that made me more angry, because what can I say to a white supremacist? What can I say to the Peyton Gendrons of this world? Do I know them? Do I interact with them? He called out white supremacy without calling out white people to work together on this. I would have felt so much better today if our president had said, white people, we know better than this. How does this continue to happen? Why are people turning their backs on this situation? How many more Black people are going to be killed? How many more schoolyards are going to be shot up by these young radicalized white people? What the hell is going on? And white people, we need to have a summit. I want the leaders of white people, the white mayors, the white governors. I need y'all to come to Washington, come to the White House. We're going to have a summit to talk about how we're going to stop all of this. Because I'm telling you, if Black people were doing stuff like this to white people in great numbers, the president would be calling the leaders of the NAACP and the Urban League and the Church of God in Christ and Northern Baptist and AME to the White House to talk about how do we stop Black on Black crime in Chicago? How do we stop what's happening in Detroit? How do we address issues in Philly? How many white people do you think the president is going to call to Washington to say, what the hell is going on? What I want whoever's in charge of gun regulation. I want whoever's in charge of surveillance. You know, this guy, as I mentioned, I'm not just making this up. He was actually under observation because of thoughts he made, statements he made about wanting to blow up a school. But yet, let me scroll down to my notes here. But yet it was said by the shop owner of where his firearms were purchased. He said that the suspect recently bought a Bushmaster assault weapon. A background check on the suspect at the time showed nothing. In this world of community, of computer technology, of social media, where things are so connected, you mean to tell me that nobody put something in a file that flags that this fool should not have a gun, so that when this fool is ready to live out his aspirations, he can actually go and get one? I've got a young man who's a friend and he attends my church. He works for me. He did, about 12 years in prison. And he's on an ankle bracelet for life. But once you get off paper, once you are no longer on parole, and once you are not under probation's, observation, you are truly free from the correction system. You can vote. He did not get a letter like he was supposed to from the state of Wisconsin saying, because you paid your debt to society, you are now free to vote. Yet his crimes follow him around. I've gone to job interviews with him. He's got a market on applications, that he has a felony, that he was convicted, that he did time. How does someone make public statements that they want to shoot up a school and they're not asked about that when they go to get a weapon? Why is there no psychological evaluation connected with folks, particularly when you're 18? What the hell do you need with assault weapons at 18? I've gone to gun ranges. I've got friends who have guns. Why do you need an assault weapon at 18? I mean, let's just think about that for a moment. It's not just a 45. It's not just a pistol. It's not like What do you need with an assault rifle at 18? What good has ever come out of having an assault rifle? How many cases do you hear of 18-year-olds having assault weapons, and then someone breaks into their home and they protect their parents and their siblings or their families or their partners and spouses if they're married because they had this artillery? What benefit has it had? Have they stopped crime? Have they stopped looting? How do the Kyle Rittenhouses and the Peyton Gendrons, how do they get these weapons and nobody thinks it's an issue? Can you smoke at 18? I don't think so. I don't think that you can go into a gas station. I don't think you can go into a Walmart. I don't think you can go in and buy alcohol, even, unless you're 21. I don't think you can buy cigarettes until you're 21, but you can go to the armed services at 17, 18, and you can buy an assault weapon. This is crazy. You can't buy a pack of beer, but you can buy an assault weapon. Who's making money off of that deal? Like I need somebody to explain that to me. I need somebody to explain. We're the lobbyists against that. What is the sense of that? We've talked about, particularly in males, that our brains aren't fully formed. We talked about whatever happens in the front of our brains, frontal cortex. I don't know. I'm making up words that I thought I remembered that sounded brainy. We talk about it not being fully formed till you're 25. Why the hell then is someone selling someone assault weapons? And why does the background search show nothing of this man's this threat? Now, I think the man that sold the guns need to be sued. I think a lot of people need to be in trouble because somebody should have been on top of this and somebody should have checked this, because these things should not continue to happen. And so I take issue when the president says we all need to work. I don't want to work together on stopping. How do I stop this? Am I going to not be black tomorrow? Am I not going to have black people's hair and black people's nose and black people's lips and black people's bill? What can I possibly do to work together? Oh, to educate white people more, and these are things we do, but it's so that they know what's going on, not so that they can avoid killing us. How does this continue to happen? And I don't mean how do the killings continue to happen? That's physical. I get it. But I mean, how does a hate-filled murderer in the name of patriotism continue to do that? Like, who's producing that? Frederick Douglass says, I challenge America because I am patriotic and I want it to be better. So the president calls people SOBs if they take a kneel during a sporting event while the national anthem is being played. But it's patriotic to buy military-grade weapons. So what? You can make America great again? Have you even taken civics? Have you passed U.S. history? Do you even understand what America means, what America is, what America allowed for your great-great-grandpa? Like, do you even you're 18, do you even understand America? And so I don't just mean how do these deaths, these murders keep happening? How is America producing teenage vigilantes who are so enraged and so in love with America and its politics and its patriotism? Who's baiting these young fools? Who is feeding them? Who is radicalizing them? How are they getting to them? I might have shared this on the podcast, but I'm going to say it again. Years ago, I did some work at a school in Seattle, and they have guest housing in a security building. And sometimes I'd go out to do some consulting and speaking. They put me in a hotel, but sometimes they put me in the security building. It was an apartment, had a kitchenette. It was nice. I preferred the hotel. And you could hear people doing drills upstairs. So like at 4 a.m, you hear people felt like they were like river dancing or something. I was visiting some friends in the Seattle area or had gone out to eat or something. So I got back at like 10 o'clock at night. It was dark. I was walking into the place, getting my keys, getting into it. Security guard walked up to me And it's okay because you're protecting the campus. I love campus. You got to keep it safe. A lot of stuff happens. But his eyes were bulging. And I'm not exaggerating, folks. He was breathing like this. What are you doing here? His breathing was so labored that it was frightening. So we had this exchange. I had to let him know, my name is up on the signs all around this campus on the major marquee. I'm the featured speaker. I've been brought back to do X, Y, and Z. I'm here. I happened to mention to the provost the next day about this encounter. He informs me, oh yeah, him. Yeah, it's come to our attention that he's been searching white supremacy sites on the work computer. No, don't adjust your device. That pregnant pause was intended. Yeah, he's been searching out these sites. All right, and he still has access to a weapon, whether it's a gun or a billy club. And you put me in the building with him, and you put me, someone who's clearly black, you put me in that same place where I'm going in and out of that space at nighttime, and you know that he's going to radicalized sites, communicating with other white radicalized leaders about what? U.S. history, politics, the latest elections, a sale at Target. What the hell do you think he's talking to people about? And who the hell do you think he's talking to them about? And why the hell is he still on your payroll? Because the unemployment rate in Seattle is not such that you can't find somebody else to get that good job, because I would imagine that university has good benefits. And you know all of this is going on, and you decide to tell me when I decide to tell you what I experienced. Did you give me a heads up that he had been searching these sites knowing who I am? No. Did you give him a heads up that I was coming in knowing what sites he searched? This is the shit that's wrong, because boys will be boys. That's just Jim. And, he's kind of a loner. He didn't say this, but this is what's being implied. We don't really take it seriously when we're looking at those kinds of sites, because it's just a site. You know what? I look at Home Depot site, then I go to Home Depot. I go to places where I want to go. I will go to Morton Steakhouse website to find out what they got to eat, and then I'll go to the steakhouse to know what to order. Someone agrees to take me out to lunch, I will look up the menu online so that it doesn't take me the normal 15 minutes to decide. They didn't think that it was problematic that he was doing this. But I bet you if he was searching porn sites at this Christian school, they would have dismissed him. Come on, people. So we all need to work together, Mr. President. What could I do to help with him? And what could that university have done to work with him? What could they have said? What could they have put in his file? Did they sit down and talk with him? Did he have a warning? Did they take his gun? He was the only person on duty that night that I saw, and he scared the shit out of me. I wasn't going to interact with him no more that night, knowing that this man has keys to my apartment and weapons and access to the computer, to the internet. So we demonize Gendron, but not white supremacy. So we talk to our friends and they say, really with these Republicans, all of this stuff is really about race, as if there are no racist Democrats, as if back in the day, Democrats and Republicans didn't both wear sheets. And I'm not saying, no, let me just stop doing disclaimers. This whole thought that if you're Republican, you're evil and you're about evil leadership. And if you're a Democrat, you understand it, you get it based on what? I'm finding that my Democrat friends have about the same amount of black friends as my Republican friends. None. I'm finding out that my Democrat friends have had about as many black people over in their houses as my Republican friends. My point is, when we just decide that white supremacy rests only within Republican hearts and districts and then we're missing. And a lot. And we're letting people off the hook because white supremacy and racism is not a political party. It is a fact of life here in the United States of America. Let me say that again for the people in the back. It's not a political party. It's an ideology. It's a philosophy. It's what's fed to school that America was theirs, and these other people are taking it away from them. And people are growing up feeling like this has been stolen. When we denounce bad people and not the system that undergirds and produces bad people, we then help to promote fascism and white supremacy in America. That's just true. So what happens is, and this is what I notice among my white friends, like, oh, that nutcase, that asshole, I can't believe he did it. Okay, but he didn't become that in a vacuum, you all. Somebody had a website, but somebody bought a computer and put him on the website. He had a gym teacher. He had a neighbor. He had a big brother. If y'all haven't seen it, you need to see American History X with Ed Norton. And it just talks about how a radicalized person helped to radicalize his little brother. People don't do this in a vacuum. So when we just single out the bad people and not the system, do you think you're going to see Gendron's parents on TV? Why is it, whether or not it's true, why is it that I believe as a black male that if an 18-year-old black person does it, you would know what their parents look like? Particularly if his dad had a prison background, if his mother was on welfare, if they had drug issues. We got to stop denouncing these murderers and not hold the system accountable. Where did he get it? Where did he get the attitudes? Not just the gun, but the attitudes and the mindset. And why are white people so afraid to talk to white people about race and racism? Why is it that white people think, I don't know how this happens. I don't know how to talk about it. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to say. I can't. I won't. What needs to be said, then say it. What do white people need to say to white people? Figure it out and then say it. But don't wait for black people to come and tell white people how to talk about bad shit white people are doing. That doesn't even make sense. So as I mentioned, Gendron was taken alive. And I talked about how he does these things because he just wants to see America be America again. But it's so hate-filled at such a young age. Do the Peyton Gendrons, do they think that they'll get away with it? Like, what makes him go and do that? Does he think they're not going to arrest me? They're not going to capture me. He's got body cam. He's live streaming it. They're going to find out the location, and they have these special numbers and addresses so they can know whose computer or system it was. Okay, they're going to find you. If you think you will get away with it, that's really frightening. If you don't care that you don't get away with it, that's even more frightening, because a person with military grade body gear, protection, and weapons who's not afraid to die and not afraid to go to prison, that's scary. And you best believe that he's going to be getting high fives in prison. You best believe that there's a segment of white supremacists in prison who are going to herald him as their young, up-and-coming, vigilante sort of protege. And what does he think he's going to get in return for this? A reward, satisfaction, virgins in heaven, eternal life. What does he think he's going to get? What does an 18-year-old white man who is angry and deranged and is willing to kill as many black people as he can, what does he think the benefit is? What was his desired outcome? And why do these boys keep getting younger and younger? Why do they keep getting younger and younger? When did he become him?
This is Jesse Mopan, originally from Port Townsend, Washington, currently living in Madison, Wisconsin. I listen to Black Like Me because racism and white supremacy are very powerful forces at work in our society today. which I'll never understand through my own lived experience as a white person. I feel like it's important to support you so that you don't have to rely on corporate donors and you can stay true to your message. And I heard about you through word of mouth. Thanks, and keep it up.
When you sign up to support Black Like Me as a patron, you support the creation of better quality content and a better society. You help to plant the seeds for a different and better tomorrow. By going to patreon.com/blacklikeme and signing up at any of the levels offered, you are not only signing up to make a monthly donation, you are also joining a growing community of people interested in engaging the issue of race with a raw, unprecedented honesty. As a patron of the podcast, you will have access to exclusive content like extended interviews, bonus rants, and video chats with Dr. G. You will also have a chance to join the conversation that other patrons are already having with Dr. G about race in America. To become a patron of the show, go to patreon.com/blacklikeme or see the link in our show notes. And for as little as $2 a month, you can support these important conversations and the work that Dr. G is doing.
When did he become this person? A year ago at 17? At 15? At 12? At 11? When did he become this person? When was it chiseled into his heart, his molecular structure, that he could become a cold-blooded killer? Because a lot of men and women went to the army, went to war at 18, and were messed up their entire lives. Weren't ready for it, went to boot camp, went to all these places, did all these things, and still weren't ready, still were messed up by killing folks. How do you with no boot camp training, no military training, how do you strap down like that and shoot people and think you're going to be okay? And doesn't seem fazed by it. Did you see him? Did he look fazed? Did he look scared? Did he look like he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar? Did he look like he was going to get spanked? Did he look like he was going to get a timeout? Why do they get younger and younger? All of who, Mr. President? All of who needs to work together? We've been working on this for 400 years, Mr. President. We've been working on trying to be American, trying to be America. We fought in wars. We escaped from the Confederate South in order to become contraband of war and all of this in order to fight against the South to free ourselves, just to have land returned back to the Confederate soldiers by the U.S. government. To have the president establish 13th or Congress 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments and the president's Emancipation Proclamation, executive orders, to still have it take years to get to the people of Texas. We've been working on this for 400 years. I don't want to work with you on this. I don't want to help you. Every day I get up and don't do what he did, I'm helping you. Every day I get up and go to work, I'm helping you. Every day I employ white people and have white parishioners and white friends and white board members, I'm helping you. But I'm not going to sit down and help you think through this, how we convince white people to stop shooting us and killing us. That's not my job. No, Mr. President, that is your job. That is the job of you as a white male. That is your job as a rich white male, as an educated white male, and as the elected chief officer of what we call the strongest, biggest, and greatest nation on this planet. You don't need my help in fixing this. Call your white Congress together. Call your white cabinet together. Call your white friends together. Call your white wife with you. You all have got to figure this out. And white people, you got to talk to white people. How do we feel about this? How does this make us look? And how do we know if children are being radicalized? And do you know anyone who seems slightly off or radicalized, or they make comments, or I know he's got that Confederate flag on his bike, but it's just a thing. He saw it on, TV. You hear stuff. Yeah, he just plays with military things. It's a thing. His grandfather was in the war. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Yeah, you're swimmers and you rape women and your fathers cry that you suffered enough after just a few months in jail. Boys will be boys. You go and blow up schools. But yeah, boys will just be boys. You drag people behind tractors. You say elections were stolen when they weren't. You run people off the road. You terrorize people, but boys will be boys. But you think 12-year-old boys are 18-year-old men. You think 11-year-old girls are 20-year-old women. We look older to you. We look bigger to you. We look threatening and menacing to you. But you have somehow made up in your mind that boys will be boys. I haven't seen a mug shot of him. I haven't seen a menacing shot of him. Hell, let a brother run a couple of stoplights and you see his mug shots from 3 years ago. If you didn't know the story, if you just looked at the shots they used in media, would you think this guy is menacing? And he streamed it because he knows there's an audience. And I need white people to talk about the audience. I need white people to stop pretending like their audience doesn't exist. Stop pretending like these websites don't exist. Stop pretending like these communities don't exist. Because if you pretend like they don't exist, you will ignore them and you will never check them and they will grow. Why is it that white men never seem threatening even when they've been so threatening? Here's the last thing I want to get to before I just start asking you some questions to think about. I was reading about this story in online in BBC News, and this piece really pissed me off. It says Mr. Gendron had already been flagged at least once to authorities for spending a day and a half in the hospital undergoing a mental health evaluation after making generalized threats while in school in June last year. How many damn years, centuries, did black people wait to be called Mr.? The newspaper called all these black people by their first names. And if you noticed, if any of the women were older than me, I did not call them by their first name. I said Miss Geraldine Talley, Miss Celestine Cheney, 65, Miss Catherine Massey, 72, Miss Ruth Young, because I don't call older black women by their first names because that's disrespectful. Yet BBC News called this man Mr. When did he earn the distinction of Mr.? When I was watching recently the story about Emmett Till's mother, Mamie Till, and it was the DA down in Mississippi was talking to her, and so much of this was taken from real accounts, so that's why I'm quoting it, because I think this really happened. He said, now Mamie, I'm getting some pushback because in the media or in the court I call you Miss Till, and she knew what he was saying because they were becoming hostile. They want to know why this woman was being called Miss and not just by her first name. She's a grown ass woman. She's got a 13-year-old son. She's working in the community. She's doing all this kind of stuff. He has to justify why he called her Miss and then her last name and not by her first name like she was some 6-year-old kid. But yet the BBC News is Mr. Gendron. And that's not how it first said his name, Peyton Gendron. And I've seen journalists where they'll start by saying Alex G, and then later they'll say G. They won't necessarily say Mr. G. Mr. Gendron has already been flagged at least once by authority. How many hundred years did it take for black men to be called Mr. and black women to be called Miss? How much did we have to go through to be dignified as not just black people, but black adult people who didn't have to cross the street when somebody else white was walking by or somebody white walking by, or not to look them in the eyes or say, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir? This is an 18-year-old boy who's an arrested terror who was taken alive and pled not guilty. Not guilty. Despite his threats, he was not on any FBI or statewide watch list, and no red flags reportedly came up during his background check. Now, the governor of New York is saying, we're going to check. I want answers. Yeah, I want answers. I don't want somebody to be fired, too. There's also a 100-page document seemingly authored by Mr. Gendron, that also emerged, in which he described himself as a fascist and white supremacist, self-proclaimed. So this isn't just conjecture. It's not just my suggestion. So here's my question for you all. Will his parents be charged? I think they need to at least be in the paper. Now, he's 18, so they're not responsible for what he did yesterday. But they sure as hell are responsible for what he did the years leading up to this. Somebody needs to file some kind of civil suit against his parents. Bring his family up. Bring people up who are around him. Do this so that there's some accountability. What do white people say to each other during this kind of tragedy? Or do you just not say anything? Because except for this, things are getting better. Folks, as black people, we think that this is the wave of the future. I want y'all to listen to me when I say this. I'm not being overly dramatic. We think this is the wave of the future. The backlash of electing a black president. Look at what happened with Trump, and look at what's been said, and think about what's been done and what's been said about. Look at this. Look at how immigrants or people fleeing, people who are coming here as refugees from Northern European countries as opposed to black countries or brown countries or countries with black people, countries with brown people. Just look at the difference. The January 6th attack on the Capitol. Y'all, they've been trying to tell us this is our land. We want to make it great. We want to take. Why won't y'all believe them? We believe them. One thing we can say about Trump, he did just what he said he was going to do. He told the truth. And so black people can't get mad and call him a liar. We call him a lot of stuff like, he sure did say it, then he sure did do it. Are white people talking about this? This was someone's son, I told you, Cub Scout, perhaps altar boy, who radicalized him, and why didn't anybody notice? Why didn't anybody rat him out? His parents, his community needs to be held accountable. And watch, we're going to find out that he was bullied or disliked or had social anxiety. You just watch. When it's said, you're going to say, Dr. G said that. The media is going to have a field day with it. They're going to find his toys, his friends, his former girlfriend, his former employer. And then clones of this boy are going to show up all over the world because they want to be seen and revered too. And they can't be cool in school with their friends, with the girls, with their teachers. But they can buy an arm, they can buy a military grade weapon when they're 16. And they can become very popular. This is what I want from the listeners. Don't fight to urge and convince your black friends that you're down with the cause. Don't do that. Because when white people say that to me and I say, well, I just need you to have a conversation with white folks. Oh, they get it. My friends, they really understand. None of us are Trump supporters. Let's not make this political because that's your agenda. I'm trying to get black people to stop getting shot in supermarkets, in the streets. That's what I'm trying to do. Selling cigarettes in their beds. So no. We're not about to co-opt this pain and put this all on Trump because guess what? We had white supremacists before Trump. This is older than just 8 years, 6 years, whatever it was. It felt like 20. Come on now. Yes, those Republican. No. Let's call it what it is. White supremacists, because some of them wear blue. A lot of them wear blue too. That's a lie y'all tell so that you can feel like you're in the right party. So you get Democrats that are married to Republicans. What are their children? Democrats? Republicans? Come on. You got rich Democrats who feel like America's been taken from them too. And y'all have bought into that there's a good side and a bad side, like the Wizard of Oz. Are you a good witch or a bad witch? Come on, people. Come on. So don't waste your time on your black friends saying, I'm down, I'm with you, I got your back, whatever you want to do. No. You can't do that while at the same time avoiding to have a discussion with your white friends about what's happening in America. And what would you do if you saw signs of radicalism with your own son? Have that talk with your white friends. Buddies, have that talk. Women, have that talk with your friends. What would you do? What would you say if you walked in your son's room and you saw a radicalized website? Would you call somebody? Would you call some kind? What would you do? What would you do? Ask yourself why young white men aren't seen as angry or wayward or dangerous or radicalized, even when their behaviors suggest that they are. But if you have dreads or twists and you're heavy and black and large and loud, you're a threat. I felt so unsafe. I felt so unsafe. And how do you stop your sons and daughters and grandkids and nieces and nephews from becoming radicalized or convinced that this country was stolen from them by bad black and brown people? What are you refuting that with? Do you just think genetically your children are going to go to school and think right about black people with no black teachers and few black kids and no black people in the curriculum? What makes you think? Is this genetic, people? Do you do this through osmosis? What makes you think? Do you think that your children know chemistry just because they have a chemistry book and sit in the classroom and never talk about it? Are you talking to your children about their views on race? Are you talking to your younger brothers and sisters? Are you talking to your cousins? Are you talking to them? Because I guarantee you somebody else will be. Somebody else will be. Ask why people in your circle about what's happening with race and race crimes in America and why they think it's on a rise. And let me just help you. Rap music cannot be one of the options. You have to say, wrong answer. That one's not allowed. Not rap music. And ask yourself, is this the wave of the future? Is this where we're really going as a country? And what are you poised to do to make sure that this doesn't happen? I sure as hell hope that you don't listen to this podcast to get some simple answers to very hard questions. I trust that if you found me, you're smart enough to talk amongst yourselves, to figure out what you're willing to do, think, say, and become in order to be part of the change. And I hope that you don't think that by listening to this or being a patron supporter, that you are somehow down in a way that it doesn't require any action. I'm going to kick back into my pastoral training and tell you faith without works is dead. That means to believe something and not live it out and practice it is dead work. You can't just be sensitive towards the cause. You've got to be active towards preventing its spread and dismantling its existence. And I don't need you to do it for me. I need you to do it for you. Because society that's been telling my kids that they are the descendants of slaves is telling your kids they are conquerors. And this land is theirs. And this government is theirs. And this nation is theirs. And people like my children are taking it from people like your children. And that's not working out well for us, is it? I want you to sit with this somber tone and this somber feeling. Because I am. It doesn't go away when I turn the mic off. So think about it. Listen to it 2 or 3 times. Share it and repost it 5 or 6 times. Have a courageous conversation with somebody you have a meaningful relationship with. And ask, what the hell is going on? Why is this becoming more commonplace? And what year is this? Because to me, it feels like open season on black people. What does it feel like to you? This is Dr. Alex G., your podcast host. Thank you so much for being on this journey. I need you to be part of the solution.
Black like me. Black like me.
Now, I've got some special shout outs to the many talented members of our ever-growing production team. Eli Steenlich, who produces the show and handles all of our social media. Don Thornton, my podcast manager, who keeps things running smoothly and arranges all of my interviews. Jeremy Holiday, who edits the podcast. Corey Saffold, who created this year's theme music, and Marcus Fleming on the vocals. And of course, Jakisha Hunt, who is responsible for our fabulous new podcast merch.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. You can find out more about Dr. Alex G's amazing work at alexg.com. Black Like Me is sponsored by the generosity of the Human Family Unity Foundation.
Black like me.